Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Talent Finders would like to welcome holistic business coach, speaker, podcast host, author, and founder of Business Builder Throwdown, Holly Jean Jackson. So, welcome, Holly.
Thanks, Karen. Yeah, it's great to be here.
So, Holly, I'd like to congratulate you on all your achievements. Can you share with us how your entrepreneurial journey started?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a really windy path. I didn't start out as an entrepreneur. I actually started out in the nonprofit space and then ended up in technology for, gosh, I want to say somewhere between 8 to 10 years and climbed the corporate ladder pretty much to the top. But I kept experiencing layoff after layoff, and the layoffs were coupled with a challenging health diagnosis. So
Oh,
eventually, yeah, I noticed this pattern and I recognized that for whatever reason, the corporate ladder wasn't the right ladder for me to be climbing. And
yes.
so, yeah, I took a one more consulting opportunity and negotiated for that to be part-time while I started growing my own business and did that for another year and a half. And initially started with just health coaching, but recognized I wanted to take a holistic approach and help people create businesses. And I knew I could have a stronger ripple effect in the world if I helped other holistic minded business owners expand and grow their business so that more people had access to holistic options for their life, and so that they could, discover their own journey as well and realize that they could do the same thing.
That's amazing. So, being a holistic business coach, can you share with the audience more about that? Because maybe some people are not familiar or don't really know what that is. So, if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, great question. So one of the questions I get a lot is, well, I don't work in the holistic space. My business is in a completely different area. Do you coach people outside of the holistic world? And yes, I do. Being a holistic coach simply means that I take a 3-pillar foundational approach to coaching my clients. So essentially, rather than hiring a health coach and a life coach and a business coach, you get all three in one. And
Yes.
the reason I created that is I found that I needed all three. And so why not offer clients one sounding board for all three, particularly because oftentimes when you're having a business challenge and you're taking all the right action, but we're not getting the results we would expect, it's usually a line of something in health or clarity or life. And
Yes.
so having somebody who has that holistic lens and can offer solutions to help you get unstuck is absolutely crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what would you say some of your biggest lessons and learnings been within your career? And maybe you have multiple, but what really stands out for you?
Yeah, one of the biggest lessons or learnings is that the better you are at navigating ambiguity and uncertainty, the more successful you will be, because we have very little control in the world. And if we've learned anything in the last 2 years, we know to expect the unexpected and to be ready to pivot. So I've learned that. Also, I would say it's essential to continue to be coachable and learning and growing. Personal development, professional development is ongoing. And if you ever believe you have arrived, you have started digging your grave, essentially. You're going to become non-essential and non-marketable and not important because it's just this ever-changing evolution and mark. And then the last thing I would say is having a business community, a mentor, and a coach is 100% essential to you hitting your dream goals and building your dream business and having a wise sounding board that you could trust.
Yeah, absolutely. So within that, you've obviously had a diverse career and you did touch on that earlier in the conversation. So as a business coach and author and a podcast host, was this an organic process for you? And when did you decide to expand upon what you originally started?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I started, again, it was just health coaching. It took a couple years to move into holistic business coaching and to refine the market, which honestly, I'm actually doing another pivot in my business today. I would say when the pandemic began, I decided to add the podcast. And the podcast came to me in a meditation really around the book I wanted to write. And I wanted accountability, but I also wanted inspiration as I wrote Inspiration Contagion. So the podcast and book are both called Inspiration Contagion. And I started that to start collecting case studies for the book series, but also to hold myself accountable to actually write the books. So that started a couple years ago, and that's been really great. And it's definitely brand aligned. It was very strategic, very intentional. It's more focused on leadership, but obviously it focuses on holistic. It's the foundation of success for these leaders. It also kind of goes into challenges and facing fears head on, which as a speaker, that's brand aligned because I speak about facing your fears head on, navigating uncertainty, and quite a few things around the marketing lens, et cetera, for like the more specifics on business. So I expanded into speaking and being a podcast host and writing the book in a very aligned strategic way to just have additional marketing tools and credibility pieces for my business, but also to create a movement to inspire and heal people, even if they weren't working directly with me. That was important. Now, the Business Builder Throwdown, which you also heard about, is kind of a side venture with two other business partners who have their own companies. And we wanted to create a show and an educational platform for people who either wanted to work with us or they didn't have the funds to work with us, to educate them around business growth and marketing strategies. So we get a lot of calls of people that just don't have the funds to work with us. So we point them to that show series so that they can learn about the strategies for growing their business. What that does for us is, one, it's a great lead magnet and tool for us to get exposure for people who are ready to work with us. But for people who aren't quite there, it gives them a roadmap for getting to a point where they're ready to work with us. And it's a great way to give back to the community. Obviously, small business owners were hit really hard during the pandemic, so we expanded into that space.
Well, that's amazing. But also, I think what's great about it is that you're also helping to offer solutions. Because I think when people, get stuck in those situations in terms of, like they're not able to financially take up your offerings or whatever, it's difficult for people. And at least you're actually offering an alternative solution to be able to get them to that point.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why, the book is out there for, there's one book, there'll be two more. The book is out there currently for people that are stuck in terms of the foundational element of health and wanting to be healthy so that they have the energy to build what they're trying to build. The Business Builder Throwdown is a free resource out there for people to, learn about growth strategies. The podcast is out there for people who are burnt out, looking for inspiration and feeling alone. So there's all these different elements of my product pyramid, whether it's all the way from free to lower price to, like let's work at a VIP strategy level together.
That's amazing. So, having gone through the pandemic, as you touched on earlier, what and how did that affect you professionally and personally? And how did you have to adapt your business? And what were some of the tools and skills you used to implement into your business, as well as support your clients? And can you give us any examples?
That is a big question we will unpack piece by piece.
Yes.
How did it affect me professionally and personally? Well, professionally, I was at the time in California in the Bay Area, and quite a few of my clients fell through the cracks of financial support that the government provided. So I lost almost all my clients. I also fell through the cracks of financial support. I won't get into the details of why. But I had to essentially borrow against my own retirement to get by for the next couple of years. And I'm still paying that back, but like that's not going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So it really forced me to have unwavering faith in what I was building because I was betting against myself, obviously borrowing against my own savings and retirement. I had to pivot quite a bit in what I was doing. Eventually ended up moving back to the East Coast to North Carolina for several reasons. One, it was more aligned for my business, closer to family, lower cost of living, fewer restrictions on business growth. And for business owners, California has quite a few restrictions and laws that make it very difficult for small companies to grow. So strategies for getting through that period, I said earlier, one of the lessons I learned early on was navigating uncertainty and ambiguity and facing fear. And so I just took those strategies and I looked at my value of creativity and started getting creative on how I could serve my clients in different ways in this new time based on what they were struggling with. And also expanding to work with a new client base and pivoting the services I offered, how I was marketing, et cetera. I did quite a few online speaking engagements, virtual summits, partnered with SCORE nationally, their national nonprofit for small business owners, partnered with my chamber in California and the chamber in North Carolina for reaching small business owners. And, the Business Builder Throwdown happened during that time period as well to help business owners anywhere from free to paid. And doing all those things and planting those seeds and trusting the process and trusting myself, I have, grown substantially since then. I grew 450% the year after that first really, really rough year. And
Wow,
then,
that's incredible.
yeah, yeah. And then this year, I believe I'm growing somewhere like between 150 and 200%. So clearly doing those things works, and being able to navigate ambiguity, but keep that certainty in yourself and having that faith and just taking the right actions, even when it feels like it's not going to work. It does. It eventually snowballs and you see the effects down the line.
So I want to talk about leadership, which is one of your strong focuses, as there's such a lack of leadership from a global business and entrepreneurial perspective. So what do you believe needs to change the current narrative? And can you give us any examples?
Yeah. So until recently, I was actually serving purely the holistic community. I wasn't working with businesses outside of that. And before I left for my last trip, I went to this healthcare forum. And in the healthcare forum, they were talking about how daunting the picture is and how they've been so negatively affected by low capital, and government support is only taking it so far, and how our hospitals across the country and probably globally are just bleeding money because the more higher paying surgeries and procedures aren't occurring, and the things that are not being paid for at a high level, they're bleeding out. So there's a loss in that area, and it's trickling down to affect other holistic modalities as well. So you can imagine attending this 3-hour forum. I left feeling like I needed an antidepressant and Xanax. But what I will say is that there were leaders in this forum that were also talking about really how we need a revolution in how we view healthcare and our system.
100%. 100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I couldn't agree more. So essentially, for us to stop bleeding money out, we actually need to completely reimagine how we deliver healthcare. And this is just one example. I'm sure this applies to several different industries and sectors. So you can draw the parallels you can hear from this story. But stories really resonate with people, and this will apply to a lot of different other things. So they were sharing quite a few like startup ideas and new inventive ways of delivering healthcare, and even how to deliver certain hospital aspects in the home, and how to do preventative medicine in a way that's requires the individual to take more responsibility, which, let's be real, we should have been doing this decades ago.
Yes.
So what this tells me is they have so many creative ideas, and they're already test casing quite a few of these in homes, and people feel safer in their home, especially with this pandemic that we're coming out of. And so if we look at this as an example, it's just all about reinventing things that are not working. We need to stop the insanity of believing that systems that are continuing to fail continuing to bleed out money and not delivering the success metrics we expect. And we need to look at it a different way. We need to invest in young people's ideas of rethinking the entire system. We need to stop being married to the way we've been doing things. And quite frankly, we need to revolutionize how we're doing things in each of these different industries. So that applies to, the stock market's not doing great. So it applies to how we look at things financially. It applies to how we run businesses so that we're more diversified to navigate things, especially as small business owners.
Yeah.
It applies to all kinds of government programs, including healthcare. So I believe we need to be thinking from the mindset of, if something's not working, how do we completely start from scratch and revolutionize that whole entire system and reimagine it and bring young minds and new minds to the table and differing opinions? Because let's be real, like, we have this extreme polarization and the answers
terrible.
are really,
Yeah.
yeah. And let's be real, the answers are in the middle. So we need both sides to come to the table and have great minds come together to have solutions.
And we need to stop this cancel culture too, because it's like you say, and these people come around the table and actually have room to discuss and debate,
Yeah. Yeah. And the cancel culture is completely against what our Bill of Rights and the original Constitution declared for freedom of speech.
Yeah.
Nowhere in the Bill of Rights does it say that with freedom of speech, it doesn't include hate speech or the opposite of our opinion or somebody that's got the extreme view that we don't agree with. Freedom of speech protects every opinion, every idea, every thought.
Yeah.
And so cancel culture is actually against, freedom of speech, which is 100%. The foundation of what we were founded on. So.
And also, don't you think, I mean, when you speak about the different systems and governments, I almost feel like all of this, in a way, had to happen, as horrible as it's been. I think it had to happen because I think what's going to ultimately happen, and again, you might want to debate this, but I think what's going to end up coming out of it is that things are going to be done more around communities than, massive government authorities. I'm not saying government won't play a role, but I think that it's almost going to come back onto communities.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at things historically, you'd think we learned from history. You have things become more centralized, then they get decentralized. You see this at companies and organizations as they, buy new companies. There's strong centralization, and then there's like this discovery of, oh, we should decentralize and give more power back to teams that are experts. The healthcare system, same thing. It's not just government. It's literally everything in life. It's just the dichotomy of things and how things historically run. Just kind of, if you look at groups forming, you've got forming, norming, storming, et cetera, right? So when you see this strong centralization pull, eventually you get to a place where that's not working. And so obviously the natural evolution is to start decentralizing, which for government means bringing it back to communities. But essentially, we just need leaders to think outside of the box, redefine things, and be open to new ideas that they wouldn't previously consider for us to succeed.
Exactly. So for 12 years, you dedicated helping businesses get their groove back in terms of mental, physical, and emotional aspects of their lives. So can you share with us more about that?
Absolutely. So even before I started my business, I worked at several different large corporate companies and universities and nonprofits. And for some reason, I was always known as the health and life person. So my clients would, not my clients, my colleagues would come to me and say, oh, I'm trying to train for a marathon. Can you put this plan together for me? I'm trying to lose weight. Can you help me with a diet plan? I have this chronic pain thing. Can you help me navigate that? And so I've always been the coach, whether it's career coaching, leadership coaching, health coaching, life coaching. People always just come to me. I think I'm easy to talk to, I guess. I also have a background in social work from my studies. And so I've always been this person. And I've always intuitively known that we need to treat the whole person. And so I took those experiences from working at other companies and pulled that into my own business over the last 5 years. And so I like to treat the whole person spiritually, emotionally, physically, and help them get back to an aligned and balanced place that's grounded, while they're also empowered to define success on their own terms and creating a step-by-step roadmap that works for them so that they are achieving maximum happiness, maximum joy, maximum, hitting those goals and just feeling incredibly empowered and excited about the legacy that they're building.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, what would you say some of your biggest career highlights have been? And again, you probably had multiple, but is there one particular one that stands out for you the most?
Ooh. Okay, well, I'll give two.
Okay.
So one that really stands out to me before I started my own business is I worked with a nonprofit called Institute for Emerging Issues and helped them develop policy stories from experts across the state of North Carolina. And we created this policy hub for the future leaders of not just North Carolina, but you can actually see this online and use it for your state, your country, your continent, and learn from what these experts experienced across 5 key areas of policy. So for me, what's exciting there is that's leaving a legacy for future policymakers and leaders and politicians that can change the dynamic of infrastructure, healthcare, education, et cetera, which is huge. So that's one. The other I would say is doing my TEDx talk. One, it was a huge bucket list thing for me, but two, what people don't necessarily know is if you watch the TED Talk, I have to face a charge of bear head-on twice to survive. But what you don't know is that when I did that recording live on stage, the first time I did it, the mic didn't work. It was kind of going in and out. So I actually had to do my talk twice. And I mean, I'm a professional speaker, but it's very different doing a TED Talk, and it was nerve-wracking. The talk was on fear, so it was kind of ironic that I had to do it twice and face my own fears.
Yeah.
So I'm really proud that I was able to maintain my composure and be an example for my fellow speakers and do that twice. And
That's
also, I mean,
amazing.
it's a fun story, and it's been really impactful for people that have heard it.
Oh, that's amazing. So you currently have a workshop coming up. Can you share with us more about this exciting and dynamic workshop?
Yeah, it's actually, I have 2 masterminds that I'm launching in the new year.
Wonderful.
One is for authors. It's called Authors Ignited Mastermind. So when I published my first book earlier this year, I discovered as a marketer that there was a huge gap in the market, whether you're publishing hybrid, self-published, or traditional route. Nobody does a very good job of giving you, one, the marketing strategy and roadmap you need, or two, does any of the marketing for you. And knowing how much heart and blood, sweat, and tears you put into writing your book, especially if it's like a real, like true book about your life, I want to make sure every published author out there is completely set up for success and 100% happy with their launch and never looks back at it with regrets. So that author mastermind is solving that part of the market. And then the other one is for speakers. And obviously quite a few authors are also speakers. But the speaker mastermind is for speakers who are just getting started or scaling to the next level, who want to have clear definitions of defining their dream stages, how they can use speaking to grow their business, mission, nonprofit, movement, and how they can have a strong call to action, engaging with their audience, as well as having a consistent, easy way to land more speaking gigs. And we cover anything from how to negotiate a stage or a conference, to the contracts, to your pricing for speaking, all of those things that a lot of people really struggle with. So those 2 masterminds are launching in the new year. You can email me directly, connect with me on LinkedIn, or I will share some links with Karen that she can share in the show notes for learning more about those.
Yeah, that's amazing. So that leads me to the final question. What are the 3 key pieces of advice you would give to other entrepreneurs And what legacy would you like to leave, or how would you like to be remembered? Because I know not everyone likes the word legacy.
Yeah. So 3 pieces of advice. One, you're the only person getting in your own way, so stop getting in your own way.
Yes.
2, get a coach or a mentor to help you get out of your own way and, live your dream life. And 3, nothing changes without taking action. So stop making excuses and take action that matches the size of your dreams today. So those are the 3 bits of advice. The legacy I want to be remembered for, and this is actually how I close my show too, so it's kind of ironic that you're asking this at the end. I want to be remembered for inspiration and healing, and being a light when there's darkness, and being kind of a guiding compass when there's so much fear in the world, so that people know that they have the power within to do more.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time today. So if people would like to connect with you, what are the best platforms to do so?
Yeah, absolutely. You can check out my website at hollyjeanjackson.com. My contact information, my social handles are on there. You can email me at holly@hollyjeanjackson.com, or the most active social platform I'm on is LinkedIn, which you can also find me under Holly J. Jackson at LinkedIn.
Well, thank you so much, Holly, and hopefully we can have you back in the future to see where you are in your journey.
Sounds great, Karen. Thanks for having me.